On today's Question of Faith, is there a relation between war and contraception? Hey there, everybody. This is Question of Faith. I am Deacon Mike Hayes. I'm the Director of Young Adult Ministry here in the Diocese of Cleveland.
And I'm Father Damian Ference, the Vicar for Evangelization.
And I'm Maria Wancata, Marriage and Family Ministry Specialist.
Yes, you are.
Hey, welcome back,
Thanks.
Maria.
Always good to have you.
Yeah.
Good softball season for you,
Yeah.
personally, right?
Always love playing.
Yeah.
Although
My favorite pastime.
I was at the softball all-star game last week, and you weren't there. You were tending to your primary vocation.
As wife and mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's
Which
fall
comes
sports
before,
season.
which comes before.
Which is just more sports for you.
Yeah.
you know, with
Yeah.
the kids.
Yes.
you know.
Every
That
night
of
of the
your
week.
children.
Yeah. I keep getting invited to play with a friend on Tuesday nights, and I can't. I can't during the fall. But,
Is
yeah.
it really every night of the week?
Is there a league somewhere?
No. I mean, for your kiddos.
Yeah. There's cross country Monday through Thursday practice.
Wow, practice,
Soccer
okay.
practice and games pretty much every day except
Yeah.
Sunday. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I forget what those days are like, you know? It's
Yeah, but soon enough they'll be over. So
like- that's right.
cherish them while I can.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was maybe last week I was on X, formerly Twitter, and I found something interesting, and I sent it over to Deacon Mike because our Holy Father, as you know, just likes to keep people on their toes, and he puts things in very strange ways. Like he has said, if you throw away food, you are stealing from the poor. Abortion is like calling a hitman out for somebody. Like this is the kind of thing he says. So
All not wrong.
no, it's but he's just got a very colorful way
Oh, yeah.
of saying what he says, and which is great. And so he said something recently. I sent this over to Deacon Mike, and I thought well, this would be fun to talk about on the podcast. So he equated war and contraception and found a relationship between the two. And Maria, you have the article before you, so maybe you can summarize what he said.
Yeah, these comments were actually from our conference in Italy in May, the general state of the birth rate. And he made the remark that the most profitable investments today are weapons and contraceptives. And that one destroys life and the other prevents it.
What's funny is that he said this in May, and I only heard of it for the first time last week.
Same. We were just saying that before the show started.
That's very
This was from
interesting.
May, yeah.
Yeah, but even just a couple weeks ago, Fox 8 ran a story on the declining birth rate in the
Yeah.
U.S. So this topic continues to come up. in
Oh yeah,
news.
the topic
Yeah.
is not
Yeah.
that's not a surprise. The fact that the Holy Father said something that like that,
Yeah.
and then I didn't hear about it for a long time is a bit of a surprise. So because a
Yeah.
lot of times people pick up on that, and
That's true.
Yeah. Anyways, so do you want to read a little bit more about what he said, or explain what his comment was? And was it? It wasn't part of a prepared text. It was part of a comment afterwards. Or?
Yeah. So some of his main thoughts were that he began the speech by criticizing the idea of overpopulation and that the problem is not how many people are in the world, it's not children, but selfishness. And then he posed the question, what kind of world are we building? And that the low birth rate is a consequence of not seeing another human being as a gift, and it shows an overall lack of hope in the world. And that homes are now being filled with objects instead of children. And so really kind of the secularization, the materialism, consumerism that we see in our culture and the world. And that to kind of reframe everything, he called for policies that enable mothers to not have to choose between work and childcare, giving young couples the chance for a stable home and to buy a house. But also, he went back to what he says a lot about the value of grandparents and the
Yes.
elderly and building these intergenerational relationships, because the youth are fearless, but the elderly have wisdom, and they need to pass that wisdom on.
And the youth are fearless to a point, but there is a lot of fear there when it comes to commitment, to getting married, and then being willing to bring children into the world. That's
Yeah.
scary for a lot of folks, and it's, and again, as you mentioned, a problem of secularism, one of many, is this notion that children can be a burden, and you have to have everything completely lined up in your life in order to welcome children into the world, when the truth is you learn how to be a parent by being a parent, just like you learn how to be a priest by getting ordained and going and doing priestly stuff.
And you learn how to budget by having things come up.
Yeah.
You know?
And and prioritizing, like this now is part of our family, and this person didn't exist before, but now does, and that switches the whole way that you approach living, even, right?
Yeah.
Here's a great example of this that will paint a little picture of this. So 50 years ago, what do you think the number one household purchase was for a family like moving into a new home? What do you think they bought first, made sure that they had in their house?
Well, because of the way you asked it, I'm going to say a crib.
No, but that's a good guess, actually. But
a fridge?
You're much closer with the fridge. Even closer.
Washing machine?
Now you're cold again.
Darn it.
The stove and the fridge were about right. What would you?
Dining room table.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, the dining room table.
Yeah.
Right, and chairs. Now, what's the number one thing that people buy?
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, TV.
Yeah, a computer or a television would be the one. About 10 years ago, it was a television. Now I think the computers home computers have eclipsed, or phones have eclipsed. Those items.
Yeah.
But that shows you where we've moved, right? What was most important was to keep the family together, make sure we were having a meal together every single night, and now it's not so much. Now the center of almost every living room is a television set.
Yeah.
And the chairs are not necessarily pointed toward each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say we moved into a new house 13 years ago, and it was one that we built from those, I don't know, box homes, but most of them now don't come with a floor plan with a dining room.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And and I watch a lot. My wife watches a lot of these home shows, and I get suckered into them.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there watching. And the other day there was an older home. It was actually in Cleveland, which was funny on one of these. And there was an older home. And they said, well, because this is an older home, look at all the room you have for a dining room. Mm-hmm. Look at all the room that the dining room had.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's interesting. And I said to Marion, I said, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. This is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could probably make a relation to that and mass attendance.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know how to eat with your family, if you don't have a family, then why would it be important to you to be part of a family of faith where the Lord provides himself as food in the Eucharistic sacrifice?
Yeah. Plus family traditions that get passed along, usually get passed along at the dinner table. I remember going home with a friend for Thanksgiving, and we went, it was to her family's house, and we all sat around, and the mother at one point said, okay, everybody. And we all kind of were like, oh, we're going to say something now. What's going on? And she said, we all have a question that we have to answer. Where did you see Jesus today? Oh. And everybody had to go around. And I had to, I was not part of their nuclear family, obviously, but I had to participate in this. And I was like, this is really nice,
Yeah.
It was nice.
No, meals are very important. And there was a study issued earlier this year from the CARA Institute on raising Catholic children, or children that stay Catholic. And it was having meal together as a family is one of the most important things in passing on and keeping the faith with your children.
Interesting.
One of the things about what the Holy Father does in equating war and contraception here reminded me of a lot of what John Paul II did in recognizing our desire to control and to solve bigger problems with simple solutions that are often immoral. So you have an unwanted pregnancy, you abort, someone violates you, you punch back, or you bomb back. Someone takes somebody's life, then you electrocute them, or what is the other?
Lethal injection.
Yeah, lethal injection. You want an easier life, or you decide to artificially contracept. And we could get into there's ways that you can space children naturally, but that's not what the Holy Father's talking about here. So there's this tendency, especially in American culture, to have everything you want, and then what you don't want, you can take a pill for that, whether it is, for cholesterol or diabetes or birth control. And there's obviously people have certain issues where you need to take particular medications for these. I'm not saying that those aren't valid, but I think too easily as a culture, we attempt to solve our problems by the easy fix, the quick fix, rather than what virtue teaches is building new habits over time and choosing the good. And that's hard, especially at first. Like, Deacon Mike, you've lost 17 pounds.
Correct.
Is that right? Because I saw you in your jersey last week at the softball game. Like, Deacon Mike looks pretty good. And
well, thank you very much.
But my guess is that it wasn't easy to do that, because I've seen what you've been eating at at meals on Tuesdays and all that. So you take on some new habits, and then things happen. But it's like the long haul, and that's hard. It's hard to build up those new habits.
Slow and steady, though.
Yeah, but that's how virtue's built, and that's how
things
things last that way. So I think in some ways that's also what the Holy Father's getting at, and it's not like he's wagging a finger and saying this to make people feel terrible about themselves. I think when the Pope or anybody speaks prophetically, what ought to be coming from the heart is, let me point out a truth to you that can actually set you free over time. And Bishop Barron likes to say, you challenge the person to the degree to which you're willing to walk with that person in growing. And I think that's a big part of our job. So if a couple is contracepting, or if they're outside of marriage or having sex, or if political leaders are coming in and talk to us about bombing people and weapons, then it's our job to sit and have intelligent conversations, helpful conversations, listen to explain what it is that is like reality. So those are my 5,000 foot or 30,000 foot ideas on, like, philosophically. I think what's going on here is this notion of, I'm going to be in control of this whole thing, rather than letting God be in control and participating with the natural rhythms of life, or the natural law, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
And I think that the accompaniment part that you just mentioned before, I think that's important, because, like, a lot of people will say, well, it's easy for Pope Francis to say this, or any celibate male for that case, because they don't have to deal with whatever comes after childbirth. So, okay, not an unfair point, but the accompaniment part is what he's talking about. He's like, no, this is all of our problems. Yeah. Literally, it takes a village, right? We all have to support each other in these things.
Yes, and, keep talking, because I'm going to pull something up that's really good.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, but I mean, I think that you don't have to completely walk in somebody else's shoes to accompany them through those kinds of things. And at the same time, you don't have to accompany someone. You don't have to walk and you don't have to be the other person in order to judge somebody's wrongness of something either. If I see someone shoot somebody, I could say, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
To take an extreme example.
Yeah, and in reading through a few of the articles about his remarks and watching some videos of it, he was correctly assessing a situation that across the board there's a decline in birth rates, and that shows lack of hope, of fear of starting family, of having children, and other things are filling that void. And so he recommended some, ways that policies could be adjusted for that. But I mean, it speaks to a broader issue, one of, not understanding how our fertility is integrated to the human person, even for women, understanding how our bodies work, how our cycles work, and what even like health science that shows us, and that contraception is it neutralizes you. It shuts down a natural function of the body, and with all of that impacts marriages. It impacts relationships. So
impacts the environment.
Yeah, and it is a big issue, a moral issue that we all need to be addressing and thinking about.
Yeah, I can say this, and I think we should say this way more often than we do, that the church's teachings on sexuality are difficult, but possible.
Yeah.
And they're also true.
Yeah.
And so, but I think when you just say, well, this is what the church teaches, and also admit that it's hard. There's a reason we have the sacrament of reconciliation. Yeah. There's a reason we need support. What I was trying to pull up here, and I did, is from Humanae Vitae. This is paragraph 29, and I love it. And he's talking about this is Paul VI. Yes, he says, now it is an outstanding manifestation of charity towards souls to omit nothing from the saving doctrine of the church. So that's, all right, teach what the church teaches. But this must always be joined with tolerance and charity, as Christ himself showed in his conversations and dealings with men. For when he came, not to judge, but to save the world, was he not bitterly severe towards sin, but patient and abounding in mercy towards sinners? Then he goes on, so speak with full confidence, convinced that while the Holy Spirit of God is present in the magisterium proclaiming sound doctrine, he also illuminates from within the hearts of the faithful and invites their assent. Teach married couples the necessary way of prayer, prepare them to approach more often with great faith the sacraments of the Eucharist and of penance, and let them never lose heart because of their weakness. And I don't think we're very good at that. Like, people get weak, and then lift them up and don't chide them for it. Be like, okay, come on back. Like, the Lord is merciful, and he never stops in his mercy. I think that's really important.
I think most married couples I know who have struggled with these things that I've been graced to hear their stories is that they all say, look, none of us have done this perfectly. We've all run into something one way or the other.
Yeah.
And and maybe it gives people hope to admit that from time to time. Just say, hey, look, I'm not perfect. This doesn't work for me all the time either. I'm sinful at times. I fall into bad practices and things like that. So
yeah,
and that's one part of our life, and the Lord wants all parts of our life. And there's and I think because sexuality is so intimate and so private, sometimes we think, oh my gosh, these are terrible.
And so charged, right?
Yeah,
they sell newspapers.
And the other thing is, when it comes to like carnal sins, like food and sex, when you've done it because you're either overweight or you puke or you're pregnant or something. There's no way to say, I'm not sure if I was really prideful there. Really, it's very obvious because it's so external. Yeah. And this is why the deeper sins are the sins of envy and pride and lack of humility, and those those even go deeper, the cold-blooded ones rather than the hot-blooded ones. I mean, sin is sin, certainly. But yeah, I think the Holy Father, I'm glad he said what he said because it gets us talking about important things and what is often passed off by a secular culture. Yeah, obviously everyone contracepts. He's like, oh, no. We should rethink this again. So it's helpful.
There you go.
Okay.
I think we covered that one. Mm-hmm. Always good. Thank you, Pope Francis, for continuing to push the envelope on these things.
He does. He's not afraid to. He's not afraid to do that.
And one way or the other too.
Yeah, he's an equal opportunity offender. And truly, like his job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.
That's right.
And he does it.
He does it well. All right. So, hey, on Thursday there's going to be an open mic night at one of your favorite parishes, Father, St. Vitus.
Oh, yeah. My classmate, Father John Raytar, is the pastor there. Mm-hmm. They have a nice hall. That's probably where the open mic night's going to be, huh?
Beautiful church. I'm looking it up right now because
it's on Lausch.
It is actually, it's at Goldhorn Brewery.
Oh, okay. So it's not at the parish.
But Young Vitus is sponsored. So it's on September 5th, if you're listening. And then food at 6 o'clock, and the acts will start at 6:30. If you want to perform or you're interested, you can follow Young Vitus Ministry on Instagram, or you can text 216-317-4666.
Any type of performance?
So it says. Just says what to perform.
All right.
Maybe Mary Fugate will go there and do ballerina. Do ballet. Do ballerina. Sound like Dr. Steve Brill. Hey, do ballerina. Check it out.
Exactly. And then our readings for this coming Sunday, the 23rd in Ordinary Time. People brought to him a deaf man who had a speech impediment. This is from Mark. And begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him off by himself away from the crowd. He put his finger into the man's ears, and spitting touched his tongue, and he looked up to heaven and groaned and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And immediately the man's ears were opened, his speech impediment was removed, and he spoke plainly. He ordered them not to tell anyone, but the more he ordered them not to, the more they proclaimed it. I love that part.
Well, I love it because it's so incarnational.
Sure.
I mean, he takes him off away from the crowd, finger in his ears, spitting, touching his tongue. Ephatha, he's groaning. I mean, if anyone thinks Christianity is abstract, they would be wrong just by reading this gospel. It's very earthy and incarnational. Yeah.
I think it's a call to us, too. How are we not open sometimes? There's more than one way of being deaf, because there are plenty of folks that I don't want to listen to, that I kind of ignore and push to the side, like society pushed this deaf man to the side as well.
That's the phrase I had highlighted, be opened. Told the man, tells all of us to be open, to receive him.
And even back in the first reading, say to those whose hearts are frightened, be strong, fear not, here is your God. He comes with vindication. When people get pushed aside, fear not.
Yeah.
God's still on your side.
We're back to those young couples who are like, I don't know if I could be committed. I don't know if I... Fear not. Fear not.
Fear not. There you go. All right. Maria, thanks again for coming by.
Yeah.
Always good to have you.
Thank you.
No softball update, but maybe volleyball or bowling in the future. That's the rumor.
If I got the time if you got the money. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We could find the money. We could find the money. If people are interested, let us know what you'd like to do.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see if we could do it for you.
All right. Coming up in a few months, Faith and Science out in Akron. So we'll have Faith and Science conference. Brother Guy Consolmango is coming in, who's the head of the Vatican Observatory, and he'll talk about creation. So that'll be good. And then we'll have our Ignite conference at the end of February, so that's coming up as well. So some of the bigger things that are heading down the pike. And, of course, Theology on Tap will start in just a few weeks. And so it's you and I will be interviewing some of our young adult leaders
That's on Tuesday night?
To start the season at Theology on Tap West.
Tuesday the 17th?
Correct.
It's in my calendar.
There you go. See that?
See you then.
Yeah. All right. So this has been Question of Faith. I'm Deacon Mike Hayes.
Father Damian Ference.
Maria Wancata.
We'll see you all again next time.